Let's turn our attention now to the East Regional, and this is one that really has not changed whatsoever. Maybe a change in personnel. We'll talk about that here in just a second, but it is the Northeast and Canada East. And they will send 5 qualifiers from the men, the women, and the teams to the CrossFit Games. Now, the biggest story at this regional isn't necessarily the athletes who are there, but one athlete who isn't.
Yeah, he might be the fittest man on the planet
Might
right
be,
now.
yeah.
Fraser,
Yeah,
Matt Fraser. Yeah, he's gone this year. But I think there's a contingent from Canada East that is playing for keeps this year and trying to fill that void and maybe step up and kind of seize control of this particular regional competition. They have 4 males from Canada East in the top 6 in the Open worldwide. That's almost unheard of. And hopefully one of them can really take the top spot this year.
Yeah, and while Matt will be missed in the men's competition, in the women's competition, we've got a clash of the Titans. It's been a couple of years in the making. Davidsdottir, Pierce, Reason Tabot, those guys have been clashing at this regional. In last year's regional alone, they took first, second, and third in different orders over 3 of the 7 events. So a really fun rivalry to watch. And some of the best women in the sport once we get to the CrossFit Games. So you get an early preview of what we might see in Madison this year.
Yeah, with Matt Fraser now out of the mix, it sort of clears the way for 2 men to battle it out for that top spot on the podium. That's Patrick Vellner and Alex Vigneault, who's coming off that injury last year. Who do you think has the most momentum now heading into the East Regional?
I give the edge to Vigneault, and the reason is this. We've seen athletes in past years who have either had an injury or even failed to qualify, like Katrin Davidsdottir is a prime example of this, where they then took that year and they didn't have the stresses on both their physical at the CrossFit Games or their mental of having to show up and compete, and they actually used it as a head start on the other athletes who did go and compete. They came back stronger, they came back more tuned up, and they came back really fired up from whatever had held them out of the previous year. So for that reason, I think that Vigneault comes into this season hot.
I would have to agree with you there, but I do think it's very, very close and for different reasons. I think for Vigneault, it's the adversity of having to withdraw last year before he even took the competition floor. Adversity is a great accelerant, but I also think Vellner having notched back-to-back podiums in his first 2 appearances in the individual at the CrossFit Games, you can't discount that as well. So he's certainly got ahead of momentum now that he's performed so well, knowing that he's one of the best in the sport and having backed it up multiple years. But like you said, Vigneault has that kind of like almost angry motivation and momentum that I think just maybe gives him the edge here.
Those are 2 of the 4 Canada East athletes that you mentioned who did so well in the Open. The other 2 are Jean-Simon Wall-Lemaire and Alexander Caron. They will obviously be at regionals as well, throwing down there with Alex Vigneault and Patrick Vellner. Are those 2, are they legitimate contenders here?
I do think they are. They have a very tough regional to kind of navigate out the gate, but I think that you have to look at their open performance, and it's hard to ignore that, because I think as far as programming goes, the breadth in terms of skills, the new movements, the formats, the time domains included in this year's Open is the best it's ever been, which points to a little bit greater success at regionals in my opinion. And so you look at what they did, 4th and 6th worldwide in the Open, behind 2 other guys named Vellner, Vigneault, and Fraser. I mean, some of the best in the sport, and they're hanging tough, especially with some of these crazy workouts that we saw Dave Castro throw out. Plus, they have a little bit of experience. Caron 7th last year. Wall-Lemaire not quite as good as 30th, but they've been out on that floor before, and I think this is an opportunity to break through.
I like that, but let me just be the voice of reason as well to say they do have some experience, but they haven't proven themselves yet. So yes, of course, you cannot ignore these amazing performances in the Open worldwide. But remember, we've also got Paulson, we've got Palomba, and they weren't too far behind in the worldwide standings in the Open as well. Those guys have proven themselves. They've been to the game. So not enough information to tell for me, but I cannot wait to see them perform.
We have a lot of information about Katrin Davidsdottir. She is coming off what to her was a subpar year, did not win her regional, and then finished 5th at the CrossFit Games. Many athletes would celebrate that. She does not. This is now part of her comeback tour here in 2018 as she returns to the East Regional, tries to get herself back on top of that podium. What do you expect to see from her at the East Regional?
I expect to see, Katrin in top form, really, because I think this slip in performance that we saw last year is going to be great fuel for the fire, akin to the 2 years that she won. You look at the 2 years that she won, she had a little bit of adversity that she could kind of rally behind. The first year it was not making the games the previous year. After she had won 1 year, then she had the adversity of losing her grandmother that added more fuel to the fire as well. And I think last year, there wasn't quite that same piece of adversity. Now that she had 2 years at the top, she was kind of the front runner for a while, and it seemed like success kind of breeded complacency in that regard, at least at the highest level at the games. So I think now having a less than ideal performance is only going to fuel her once again.
Yeah, just to build on that, I mean, we've seen Katrin make a habit out of taking her worst failures and turn them into her greatest successes. And I agree with you. The silver medal last year motivated her. Still, that turned into a 5th place finish at last year's CrossFit Games. I think you see the return of the champion here. Katrin Davidsdottir, who's more aggressive, who brings the fire and some ferocity to the field of play.
You mentioned 3 women who are in that Clash of the Titans, Davidsdottir, Pierce, and Caroline Prevot. There's another one who could get into this, and it's based on what we saw from her during the Open. That's Carolyn Prevot. What are you expecting from her now? Is now she is going to be on the competition floor with a lot of these same athletes after a very impressive showing in the Open.
In short, really, really big things. I got to see you guys talking about her at the Open. I was out on the road, but I was watching the updates, and her name kept coming up because she was doing so fantastically in the worldwide standings. And I thought, well, where does that kind of a jump in performance come from? I reached out to her, and she said the big thing that's changed in the past year, she's a teacher. This last summer was the first time that she's ever had an entire summer where there were not classes, there wasn't coursework. Yeah, how about that? I don't even know where that would factor in, but I wouldn't want to be on the wrong end of it. So she had a whole season, or a whole summer rather, of being able to focus just on training. And the other thing was, my friend is a hockey player, you can appreciate this. She's a professional hockey player, but she played D1 college in Madison. Yep. And so when Dave Castro announced that, she said that she literally flipped her mindset from I just want to make it to regionals to I want to go to the CrossFit Games. And it was that flipping mentality that gave her this quantum leap in performance.
There's one big name that is missing it from the men's side. He's going to compete on a team, but that's Dominick Larouche. He's a guy that is usually in contention for one of those qualifying spots for the CrossFit Games. What does his absence do to the field?
Well, I think it really gives a boost to the other men from Canada East. I actually had the opportunity to catch up with Albert before the season started, and he told me he was going to go team. That was his choice for the year. He didn't rule out future competitions as an individual, but he had nothing but sparkling things to say about the other guys coming out of Canada East, the return of Vigneault, guys like Alexander Caron. And it seemed like he was so stoked to be able to support these guys and be in their corner. And if you're an up-and-comer or someone trying to come back from adversity, it's nice to have one of the pioneers of the sport from your region in your corner cheering you on, even though they're kind of moving out of the way to let you shine. And I think that's really going to help propel some of these guys because they're a pretty tight-knit group out in Canada East, and that can only help them.
Yeah, he's a guy that, I mean, I've been a big fan of his for a while. I love watching him compete. At least he'll be on the competition floor in the team competition. You look at the East Regional as a whole, what's the one can't-miss thing that you're going to watch here on the 3 days coming up starting on Friday?
I think you can't miss Patrick Vellner. Yeah. I really want to see how he responds to getting to be the man finally with Fraser out of the East, and if he can walk away with that competition. I liken it to, you know, when Jordan decided to kind of retire and try baseball, Scottie Pippen was thrust into the spotlight as the go-to guy. I want to see how Vellner responds in kind with being the man out in the East.
Man, Sarah Sigmundsdottir is now a shotgun, and Patrick Vellner is now Scottie Pippen. I love everything.
A lot of metaphors going on here.
What you got going on today. I'm sticking with my theme of Ladies Week, and I'm focusing on this fantastic competition that we have between the top 3 ladies, especially. Carolyn Prevot will be fun to watch as well. And I want to see the return of the champ, man. I really want to see, you know, we've all got our specific athletes that we're fans of. Katrin's one for me, and these 3 women in particular. It's just a treat for everyone to kick off the regional weekends with top athletes like this setting the bar.
Yeah, we are not easing into this thing.
No way.
There's some great competitions to watch here on week 1 of the 2018 Reebok CrossFit Games Regionals. Kayla Banfield has been she's been monitoring social media. I got to get these reps out of the way. Yeah, she's modifying some stuff too, but she's been paying attention to what's going on with the East athletes in social media. Let's go back over to Kayla.
Indeed, I have, Sean, and thank you so much for everyone who is already commenting. I did want to say that we actually accidentally created a bit of a fuss on social media when we said no Matt Fraser. Everyone started frantically going, why no Matt Fraser? Is he injured? Kate McNichol even said no Matt Frazier, which I think is a reference to Tommy's pronunciation, but Matt Fraser has just moved region, so I'll let the guys elaborate. I'll let the guys elaborate that on a little bit more after, but he is still in the game, just not in this region. So moving on to our athlete highlights. First off the mark, I am going to highlight Miss Corinne, and I'm sorry if I pronounce your last name incorrectly, but I'm going to go with Lemieux. So I was particularly impressed by Corinne because not only is she a regionals athlete, she is also a masters athlete too. On top of this, Corinne also owns her own CrossFit gym. As you can see in this photo, this is her with her crew. And finally, to add to the mix, she is also a mother of 2. And obviously fitness runs in the family. It's great to see her kids getting involved in the sport too. Now, part of my job is just trolling social media, which I'm very grateful for, but as I was trolling social media, I came across this video on Corinne's feed, and I was particularly amused about it because I was really wondering, what had gone on. She has the hashtag, it's been a long 5 weeks, and we can all relate to that. But I have so many questions. At least her friend looks like she's kind of happy. Next athlete is Daniel Weiger. In 18.2, he sprained his ankle and wasn't sure if he could continue in the season. Good to see that not only did he finish the Open, but he qualified too. He's also a law student. I liked the comment in this picture. First exam was okay, but I'll really crush it in the redo. Oh right, we're not in the Open anymore. So that was quite good. Another cool picture, Daniel was on his way to his law exam when he realised it was snowing. He said he used the plough like he was next to Matt Fraser at the games, and thanks CrossFit for saving his law career. To finish up, it's a picture of Daniel taking his rest very seriously and doing according to his programming and resting as needed. If only getting to regionals was that easy. So I really like Daniel's feed. It was very funny, full of a lot of good posts, so if you're after a laugh, head over there. Speaking of laughing, we are calling out all comedians. If you are particularly good at making a meme or making a funny mashup or doing a video or putting funny filters on my friends at the desk, we want to hear from you. And you guys are all right with that, aren't you?
Be now, yeah,
Be
sure.
part of it,
I mean, look, I don't think you've really made it in this world until you actually have a meme centered around you. I mean, that's
It's
one of
true.
the big signs of success.
Cake on the desk, face in.
We could do that
you
maybe
never
week
know.
3. I
We
think
could
we'll be
do
to
that
that
at the
point.
end of the 3 weeks.
Pat.
Yeah. Thank you, Kayla. Continue sending those comments in. She will get those questions to us. But yes, Matt Fraser is still in the regionals. He's in the Central Regional. We're going to break that down in a couple weeks when we get ready for him. But
words
he's in the
have power.
Central
Look what you
Regional.
did to the
He is
internet.
still
Sorry.
competing. Yeah, Tommy, why'd you have to break the internet like that? But yeah, don't worry, Matt Fraser is still competing.